guys, welcome back to some more AFK Arena. Today we're back over on the YouTube account and we're going to be doing a breakdown of the heroes. Now, when it comes to the overall AFK Arena, there are so many different game modes. When we start getting into the Cursed Realm, the Nightmare Corridor, the Treasure Scramble, it is very imperative that you know how to build the heroes, which heroes to build, and where to build the heroes. So we're going to hop over to Reddit, and I want to check out this guide from Manuel and Arkman that really breaks it down. And I also want you to note that it does have the builds in here. It is super imperative. I will put a link down to the guide below, but let me go ahead and pull this up, and we want to take a look and break this thing down. So here is the usage tier list for November 2025. And again, looking at this, I want to run through kind of the notes in the system that he used in here. So now the tier list shows what people are using, but not necessarily the best. Now, this is the simple reason. When you get into the Treasure Scramble, there are 4 different game modes. When you start looking at the Nightmare Corridor, there are a multitude of bosses. When you get to the Cursed Realm, there are a multitude of stages and bosses. Depending what is up will depend on some of these heroes. Now, he scored this, the top number in the left, as we can see right here, Scion, for an example, scores a 20. 8 points for the Nightmare Corridor, 6 points for the Cursed Realm, 6 points for the Treasure Scramble. Now, Nightmare Corridor got a couple extra points, that 8 points instead of 6, because it is a game mode where you can get those Draconic Insignias. And we know as it sits today, it is the absolute hardest thing to get in AFK Arena is Draconic Insignias to build those Highborn Draconic heroes, which is arguably, like he says, the most valuable resource in the game itself. So let's break this down, guys. Rockaday did the visuals, and I have to say, when it comes to looking at these guides, it is absolutely epic. So starting up here with our S tier, which is the 19 to 20s, like I said, this is a big thing. When I build my tier list, when I look at the tier list, I absolutely love how epic this is built because it shows you a plus 40 signature item, the 9 of 9 furniture, and an E60 engraving. If you're going for the whale build or larger build, right here is the E68 engraving, focusing on the attack, the crit, and the crit damage amplification that this hero does possess. It really goes above and beyond where we would normally build the heroes like a 30960 and breaks out where if you're looking to min-max heroes, which is very important for this specific game mode, building up the signature item, and of course, looking on who is going to be the most useful. And that's the reason why I kind of wanted to break this down. So when we think of a hero like Scion, he is a best in slot damage dealer for a lot of formations, meaning you have to, and it is imperative to put the plus 40 signature items on these heroes first, because that is where the damage is going to come from. Now, when we start looking at heroes like Scion, when you look at Labirda, when you look at like the awakened version of Astrilda, even going over here and looking at Envy, these are heroes that are, again, very reliant on stats because they are damage dealers, which means you want to prioritize the SI40 on a lot of those heroes that are going to be the primary damage dealers in different game modes. Now, there are a few in here that are going to offer some more buffing, some more resources, but a lot of them, even at a plus 30 signature item, fundamentally will work. Some heroes absolutely require that plus 40 signature item because of the stats that it brings and because of some of the added abilities that we do have. For instance, looking at Aurelia, Aurelia works well at a plus 30 signature item, 9 and 9 furniture, a 60 engraving, and even here 62 for the haste and the haste. But overall, Aurelia will work at a 30. Now, again, thinking bigger picture and thinking of all the different game modes, because they have so much utility in so many different game modes, you want to build them up to really the ideal that we have here. Even looking at Shuna is used everywhere, plus 30 in here, absolutely a requirement. Only going 36 with the haste and insight. So not even doing the 60 in here. And again, this is really subjective to the build and to the heroes that you have access to within AFK Arena. Now, this is also the assumption that you have all of the heroes built in the entirety, because there are some places where, for instance, when you start looking at outside of the Nightmare Corridor, the Cursed Realm, and the Treasure Scramble, when you start looking at like the Temporal Rift, campaign formations, stuff like that, some of these heroes are not as prevalent in some of those game modes. And of course, the Slumbering Seal is another one, which arguably, like he says up here, is the best pet in the game. But outside of it not being used in the Nightmare Corridor, it gives it kind of a debuff in there. But of course, when it comes to campaign formations, in the bigger overarching really game of AFK Arena, the Slumbering Seal can do incredibly well. So let's run through this, guys, and I just want to give you kind of the overview of what it looks like. So looking at the S tier, again, we have Scion, and 40960 is going to be a majority of these heroes. Belfier, the exact same, very important to put Magical Pierce on there. Then we have Shuna, again, a little bit less of the engraving. 40960 in here, even 61 with Insight for that crowd control aspect. Looking at Liberta, the haste. Again, some of these, even building it up to a 61 engraving to add on the haste. If you're looking at some of these primary damage dealers, you can even build them up a little bit higher, adding on some more of that attack or adding on some Magic Pierce, adding on a couple of those attacking or really those damage dealing calculation abilities. That can really make a big difference. Then we look at Aurelia, the 40960 here. Again, she works at a 30. Same with Demia, a 30 will work incredibly well, which interesting enough with Demia, we've started seeing her in some positions that is a damage dealer and a best in slot damage dealer in some of them. And the same for the Awakened version of Estrilda. We are seeing her used as a defensive hero with the shielding, with the healing aspect, but also used as a buffer aspect, but also used as a best in slot damage dealer in a couple different formations. Really does make a big difference, especially with the Awakened heroes, that they are built out considerably. Now looking at Jerome, still one of the best buffers within AFK Arena. Same with Misha. And then, of course, we do have Lan in here. Now, a lot of players are running and have been running Leviathan. Again, at this point within AFK Arena, the 60 is good, but not necessary. Overall, when you build up Lan and getting the Highborn Draconic heroes, as it sits today, she is probably not the priority. I would put it more towards building out Leviathan for Lan, just for the simple fact that Lan is going to be replaced at some point, and it could even be replaced with the next release of the Highborn Draconic heroes. Then we get into the Beast, and as you can see, Trickery Chest in here. We do have the Treat Spectator, and then we do have the Panda Dumpty to really round out that top S tier. Looking at the A tier, the Awakened version of Sophia, we have Lysander. Now, this is another hero very interesting to see on the build. Out of the gate, he wasn't very effective at all, but we've seen his utility actually go up a ton. Same with the Awakened version of Thorin, does require that plus 40 signature item on there. 61 haste is going to make this hero really, really shine. Getting into the B tier, which interesting enough, Leviathan is down here in the C tier. I believe there is a game mode again that he has not used, and I believe it is the Nightmare Corridor, which scores that 8 extra points in there, where he doesn't predominantly have a formation. But then we start getting into the B tier. You can see we have Melion in here. We have Albedo. Now, Albedo is being used in conjunction with some of the new dimensional heroes that we're seeing. So I have seen her and I have used her in a couple formations. I think even the current iterations, we are still seeing her be used in the entirety. And then, of course, we have some buffing out of here with Sun Jin Woo. Lavatoon still as a really big buffer. Same with Palmer. Now, interesting enough, with the Awakened version of Skarath, we are starting to see him used in quite a few different places. I even built him up a little bit. I built him to that 63, the 63 engraving to build him up just a little bit further. Even took him again to a plus 40 signature item, trying to min-max the levels in there and the damage, but again, only required at a plus 30. The Rock we have at a 20. And then even looking at Talmar, this is another hero. Very, very impressed with how well the hero has performed for being a regular 4-faction hero. Marcial, another one, really big damage dealer. And a lot of players I know, including Finn, have said the plus 30 to a plus 40 signature item doesn't really have a huge impact in here, which I thought it would. I built her to the plus 40. And as you can see right here, we do have her at a 40, plus the haste and the crit. And then we do have Randy in here. Now looking again, kind of coming out to some of the beasts, we do have the Owl in here. We have the new Awakened Beast and the Ibis as well, rounding out the top 6 beasts that we're seeing in the utility. Now, C tier, you can see we get into Leviathan. We have Kalon in here. Also do have the Awakened version of Athalia. Again, losing a couple points because some of these are not best in slot with some of the game modes anymore. That being said, if you do not have all of the heroes built, these heroes will be your best in slot heroes. There are a lot of iterations where, like, running the Awakened version of Athalia is really effective. And again, thinking of myself, where I do not have Kalon, I do not have Skylan, I do not have Halia. Some of these are going to be very strong substitute heroes in here, just for the simple fact that you don't have everyone built in its entirety. and the effectiveness of these heroes really goes up exponentially if you do not have all of them built. Now, note number three, guys, we adjusted some of the hero scores depending on how easy they are for the substitutes, for alternatives. Some heroes like Ceramina were moved down. Others like Awakened Lucius had their usage scaled up accordingly, depending on who you have. Again, that is interesting because even looking at the list right here, usually with Skylin, I will sub in, it will be either the Awakened version of Eron, or it will be subbing in Scion for Skylin. And then, of course, over here with Halia, I've been putting in Vithiel because I have Vithiel built up pretty big. Works as a pretty good sub in there, pretty good damage dealer and buffer. And overall, there are a few substitutes. Now, you notice the Awakened version of Shamira is still in here. We still have Gavis in here, still seeing a lot of utility. And when you start getting to the game modes that are running 5 and 6 teams, it is imperative that you build these heroes out if you really want to go ahead and scale within the game modes. Then, of course, Slumbering Seal does come in. Then we get into the D and E tier. A lot of these are very particular heroes for either one iteration of a game mode, or they're being run like best in slot for the treasure scramble. Like even thinking here with like Kregor and a couple other ones, absolutely best in slot for the treasure scramble. Unfortunately, that is going to be the only place that you're using the hero. And then also thinking of like the Slumbering Seal within the treasure scramble. So looking at Taylene, looking at Flora, looking at a couple other ones in here that still do work incredibly well in that game mode. And then, of course, we have Ulna still being here with that 9 of 9 furniture. Imperative when it comes to running, and usually with Skylin in the formation is what they're running together. But even looking at the D tier, looking at Rem again, thinking kind of my free to play account, because I do not have a majority of any of the Awakened heroes, short of having Envy, Rem for utility wise actually amplifies depending on the account that you have. It will really make a big difference. Now, again, there is Vithiel as one of the subs that I definitely use. And then there are a few in here like Hodgkin, even looking at Rosaline, still do work incredibly well. We have the E tier, and again, I want to look at the notes. Heroes like Gorin, Sheltier are really good, but they're only used in the treasure scramble, which makes them a little bit low. Nyla only used in the cursed realm as well. So again, these are some of the heroes, and I really do not recommend building out niche heroes for one specific game mode. Where if you look at Nyla, not only going to be incredibly hard to build just doing the summons and getting her up to the engraving, but a 30960 for a hero that is only used in one single game mode, I would not recommend, and I do not recommend by any means, just because of the sheer cost of getting these Draconic heroes. Then we go down to our F tier, which is the bottom ones. Again, even right now, guys, I am still using Queen, and I believe it's in the iteration that we're doing right now, but you can see Brutus was also being run in there. Nemitsu was being run in there. So there are some iterations, again, that some of these heroes are still being used kind of as a one-off. So heroes like Awakened Solus or Antad would need a really high investment to work. Since they're moving out of the meta, it is not recommended to put resources in there. Vika and Kren are only used in one single round of the Curse Realm. So again, I don't want you over-investing into heroes to just have them either replaced by newer heroes that are coming up, or be using the hero at a point, even thinking like the Awakened version of Antandra, where not really best in slot is going to be replaced very, very soon. So it's very interesting to see. Again, big shout out, guys, to Manuel and Arkman and Rockaday for putting this together. I love how it looks, and I know the methodology behind it, and I love the ability to put the signature item, the engraving, and the furniture in there where you need to build these heroes kind of as a reference. Even if you kind of cross-reference with a couple different tier lists, even thinking of Sibo's list and everybody else, is knowing where to build the heroes is kind of half the battle in AFK Arena, especially because we do have so many heroes that are out there. So all right, guys, so that's going to do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, and as always, thank you guys for watching.